The millionaire smirked. "Translate this, and my entire salary is yours." The maid responded quietly, leaving him speechless. Laughter echoed through the wood-paneled luxury office of Richard Harrington. The tech billionaire thrived in moments like this, amusing his board members with what he considered clever humiliation of his staff. Standing motionless, Elena Vasquez held the document he'd shoved into her hands moments earlier. Her face was unreadable, an expression perfected over 20 years of service. She had mastered invisibility in plain sight. But today, something felt different. "I'm not joking." "Elena," Richard said, wiping his eyes between bouts of laughter. "That's the latest contract from our Shanghai partners. Even our translators are struggling with it. If you can decode that by morning, I'll hand you my monthly pay." "That's nearly $400,000. The other executives chuckled, lounging around the imported coffee table. Their fourth billion-dollar acquisition of the year gave them reason to celebrate, and Elena was merely tonight's after-dinner entertainment. "Richard?" "You're awful," laughed CFO Diane Winters, shaking her head. "Don't mess with the help." Elena glanced down at the pages filled with intricate Mandarin text and dense technical diagrams. The paper trembled slightly in her fingers, not from fear, but from something she rarely permitted herself to feel in this house: anger. "Tomorrow, 5 a.m., Richard added, already turning away, his diamond cufflinks glinting beneath the chandelier. "Though I expect you'll hand that back long before." Elena nodded once, still holding the document. "Will there be anything else, sir?" "No, just restock the bar. We'll be celebrating late." Without another word, Elena exited quietly, pulling the heavy oak door closed behind her. Laughter trailed off as she walked the silent corridor, her practical shoes sinking into carpets, likely worth more than her annual wage. Reaching the kitchen, the only space that felt her own, Elena placed the document gently on the marble countertop and stared at it. 20 years she had worked for the Harrington family. She'd polished their floors, cared for their children, and stood silently beside Richard's wife during her final days. And yet, to Richard, she remained furniture, something for convenience. Or mockery. Her fingers reached into her uniform pocket, pulled out her phone, and snapped a photo of the document. She typed a short, precise text and hit send. "It's me. I need your help. It's urgent." 40 minutes later, after quietly restocking the bar and scrubbing the kitchen until it gleamed, Elena slipped away from the Harrington estate. She drove her aging 12-year-old Toyota through dim city streets toward her small apartment, tucked in a working-class neighborhood nearly 20 miles away. Despite the hour, many apartment windows still glowed. Sleep came late in places where survival took priority. Inside her modest but spotless one-bedroom unit, Elena changed out of her uniform, tied her hair back, and sat at the worn desk in her corner. Opening her laptop, she attached the photo of the contract to a blank email and typed carefully, "Professor Lin, I apologize for contacting you so late. I have an urgent matter requiring your expertise. Attached is a document. I need assistance. Understanding, any help would be deeply appreciated. Warm regards, Elena Vasquez." After pressing send, Elena crossed the room to a small bookshelf. Behind rows of worn novels, she pulled out a leather-bound notebook. Its pages were filled with years of handwritten notes, meticulously organized in multiple languages. She turned to a blank page. Her pen moved swiftly. What Richard Harrington didn't know, what none of her employers ever had, was that long before she'd become their invisible maid, Elena Vasquez had been Dr. Elena Vasquez, a university professor specializing in East Asian linguistics and technical translations, until political violence forced her to flee. At 2:17 a.m., her phone chimed. "Professor Lin, just reviewed your document. It's a quantum computing hardware partnership agreement. Highly specialized. Terms: need help with specific sections?" "Happy to assist," Elena smiled faintly. Lin was the only person who knew her true past. Years ago, he had recognized her at a charity gala serving drinks. He had never told anyone. "Thank you," she typed back softly. "I'll manage most of it. Help with any dense technical terms would be appreciated." The night stretched on. Her skills returned as her hand traced character after character. The document outlined proprietary technology, its potential to change encryption standards globally. But hidden within dense legal phrasing were troubling clauses. The Chinese partner would gain unrestricted access to Harrington Tech's cybersecurity infrastructure, buried technical betrayals, deliberate dot by dawn. Elena had completed not just a full translation but a secondary report highlighting every critical vulnerability. She printed both. Then, with only 2 hours of sleep, she returned to the Harrington estate for her morning shift. By late morning, as Richard and his executives nursed hangovers over Elena's coffee, laughter still lingered in the air. "Elena," Richard called lazily as she refilled the breakfast bar. "Hope you didn't take last night too seriously. You can bring those papers back when you're ready?" She turned calmly. "I've completed the translation, sir." The coffee cup halted mid-air. Silence fell. "The contract," she added softly, holding out the folder. "As you requested." She walked forward and laid it gently on the table. The executive stared in stunned disbelief. "That's impossible," Richard snapped, though his smile cracked for the first time. "You're telling me you translated a high-level technical document overnight?" "Yes, sir," Elena said softly. "I also marked sections you may want to reconsider." The laughter died. The silence in the room was absolute as Elena placed the folder calmly onto the table. Richard looked at her not like an employee, but as if seeing her for the very first time. Slowly, he opened the folder, flipping through the neatly typed pages. His expression shifted, amusement, to confusion, to something dangerously close to fear. "This section," Elena said gently, stepping closer, pointing to a paragraph. "Midway through the third page, grants your Chinese partners unrestricted access to your security infrastructure without disclosure." Her finger slid down the page. "And here this clause transfers co-developed technology ownership to a subsidiary in Shanghai." Richard's face lost all color around the table. His executive sat frozen. Diane Winters, the CFO, seized the folder from him. She skimmed the lines, eyes widening. "She's right, Richard," Diane said sharply. "These provisions would have buried us. How did legal miss this?" "The legal language is masked by industry-specific terminology," Elena explained softly. "Unless you understand both the language and the technology, it looks routine." Richard stood abruptly, his chair toppling backward. "Everyone, out," he barked, "except Elena." The executives filed out in silence, Diane cradling the folder like a life raft. When the door closed, Richard paced furiously, then turned to her. "Why didn't you tell me?" he whispered, voice cracked. Elena met his gaze without emotion. "You never asked, sir." Her answer hung heavy between them. In 20 years, he had never once asked who she really was. "How much do I pay you?" Richard's voice sounded hollow. 52,000 a year, sir, plus health benefits." He ran a trembling hand through his hair. "For that? You've been raising my kids, running my house, and now you've just saved my company from financial ruin." She said nothing. Richard's voice dropped, quieter. "After the way I've treated you, why would you help me?" Elena stood. Still, hands folded. "I work here," she said softly. "If this company collapses, everyone suffers, including me." Richard sat heavily, staring at her as if trying to unlearn every assumption he'd ever made. 20 years, he murmured. "You've lived in my house, cared for my wife, raised my children, while I treated you like a shadow." He winced. "I don't even know where you're from." "Venezuela," Elena answered quietly. "I taught at the Central University of Caracas. When the purges started, I escaped with nothing." Richard nodded slowly. "Your qualifications didn't transfer." "No, my records were lost. To start over, I'd have needed years." "Money, papers," she paused. "Your first wife hired me. She was kind." At that, something shifted in Richard's face. His anger softened. "Margaret always had better judgment than I did." He exhaled sharply. "And that salary I offered you last night, that was cruel." "It was a joke," Elena said softly. "I understood." Richard shook his head. "No, it wasn't just a joke. It was a power move. I wanted to remind everyone in that room where they stood, and where you stood." He looked away, shame creeping into his voice. I became the exact man I once promised myself I'd never be. Elena said nothing. This wasn't her moment to speak. Then Richard stood abruptly. But a deal is a deal. 400,000. Mr. Harrington. That's not necessary. It's Richard, he said quietly. And yes, it is necessary. He crossed the room, unlocked a drawer, and pulled out his checkbook. This isn't just about your translation, he said, writing carefully. You saved my company from a disaster. Our cybersecurity team will need to start a full audit, but what you caught, that could have cost us billions. He tore the check from the book and handed it to her. I'm writing this now, before my pride convinces me not to. Elena accepted it hesitantly. Her mind raced. That money could change her family's life, pay for her nephew's education, protect her sister's future, secure her own retirement. But Richard wasn't finished. I want to offer you something else, he said softly. A real position. Our international division needs someone like you. Proper salary, full benefits. No more uniforms. Elena looked up from the check, her expression unreadable. I've stayed invisible for a reason, she said. My family back home, they're still in danger. Richard nodded slowly, understanding. Then we'll do it discreetly. Private. Contractor role. No public profile. You'll work directly with legal behind closed doors. Elena hesitated. I'd need guarantees. Name them. Anonymity. Flexible hours and... She hesitated, her voice steady. Equal treatment. No more jokes at the expense of your staff. Richard's face reddened. But he nodded. You have my word. And I know you'll need time to believe that. She folded the check carefully, sliding it into her pocket. I should finish my duties for today. Richard stepped aside, then softly said, I'm sorry, Elena, I mean that. She gave him a small nod and walked away. 3 months later, Elena sat in a private office atop Harrington Tower, on her desk, a state-of-the-art workstation, legal texts in 7 languages and reports from global partners. She had just flagged vulnerabilities in a Brazilian contract that the legal team had missed. A gentle knock. Richard entered with 2 coffees. He placed one carefully on her desk, exactly how she liked it. The Singapore deal's back on track, thanks to you. The board was impressed. Elena accepted the coffee with a quiet smile. She still lived in her modest apartment. She still kept her profile low, but her life had changed. I have something for you, Richard said, placing a small box on her desk. Open it when you're ready. After he left, Elena unwrapped the package. Inside, a sleek brass nameplate. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Director of International Linguistics and Cultural Affairs beneath it. A handwritten note. Whether you choose to display this or not, just know you are seen. Elena traced the engraved letters with her fingertips. 20 years of silence had ended. Not with permission, but with choice.